Now we want to transition into just giving more information about the Black Girls Equity Alliance and how you as an individual or as an organization can get involved. And so to help us transition into this session, I am going to call upon our research coordinator, Tashara Hellier, who has been helping to co-convene all of these working groups and help us to kind of lay out how this afternoon is going to work. So Tashara.
Thank you, Kathy. And I actually want to say, I say this to Kathy often, that the work that is being done in Pittsburgh, that is being led by GwensGirls and the Gwendolyn J. Elliott Institute, I have not seen anywhere else in the country. And I am in Washington, D.C., and I've worked with a lot of jurisdictions on the ground around the country on these issues. And so, whereas I know it feels like today we have so far to go, I also want to remind us of how far we have come. So, with that said, as Kathy mentioned, I am the research coordinator for the Gwendolyn J. Elliott Institute, and I support the dynamic work that's happening on the ground in Pittsburgh, including the work that's being done by the Black Girls Equity Alliance. So it is a group of 4 work groups. They are the Child Welfare Work Group, the Education Work Group, Health and Wellness, and also Juvenile Justice. You heard a bit from the Juvenile Justice Work Group right before this session. So we're actually going to start this time around with child welfare. And you all who are panelists today, please do introduce yourself. But before we jump in, I want to say that this 30 minutes or so is really giving us an opportunity to know more about your work, since people are going to decide what work groups they're going for the real working session after this, because we want this part of the summit to be all about what can we do. We've heard all of the tough data, we've heard the negative experiences, we've heard about the trauma, but now what? We have to be careful not to further pathologize our girls and instead to sit in a place of action. And I know that is what GwensGirls is all about, as well as the BGEA. So I am going to turn it over to Angie Steele to tell us a little bit about the Child Welfare Work Group. What have you all been up to over the past 12 months or so, well, since the beginning of 2019 or 2020? And also, can you tell us a bit about who is at the table with you for the work group that you are convening?
So, hi, I'm Angie Steele. I'm a diversity inclusion officer with DHS, focused in child welfare. And so our work group has been working over the years, focused mostly on Black girls and maintaining the girls in their homes. So I've presented data several times before about the reasons that Black girls are coming to the attention of child welfare and are being removed from their home. And the majority of these reasons are things like parent-child conflict, which are normal teenage behaviors, normal conflict between a parent and a child. But somehow when it comes to child welfare, it's pathologized, it's seen as a safety risk, and children are being removed from their homes for it. Also in line with that, we're removing a lot for child behavioral health concerns, but we're not a behavioral health agency. So our work group has really been focused on finding and utilizing community organizations that we can wrap around a family before the family gets to the point of being involved with our system. We really want to focus on stopping our girls from coming to our front door so that they don't get swept up in our system and go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So since the beginning of the year, we've only had a couple of meetings because unfortunately with COVID and everything shutting down, a lot of the work in child welfare, since I sit in child welfare, focused around COVID and things like the work group and focusing on looking at data and case reviews kind of got put on hold, but we're very much back up and working on it. Our East Regional Office serves a large majority of our Black girls. And so their task right now is doing case reviews, really looking deep into what are some of the systemic reasons for why girls are coming to us and coming into our care. So the work group now will be picking up that work, really focusing on, again, community organizations and keeping girls from coming to our front door, but also if they do have to come into our web, what are some supports that we can offer, and really keeping girls in family settings, so bolstering our foster home availability for our girls. And that's where we're at now.
Thank you, Angie. And I remember first hearing you speak about that parent-child conflict issue that brings so many girls in care. And I was honestly, this is sad to say, impressed that you all even had that kind of level of nuance in your data. So can you just speak a little bit about that for folks who may not be able to join your work group? How is it that you all were able to collect the data and to drill down that deep as far as demographics is concerned?
Sure. So Allegheny County has really been focused on data for well over a decade. And when we took on the work to really look at our racial inequities and start to address them, we did them from a data-driven perspective. So all of our casework is entered into a data system. And then, so we're able to pull from that system how decisions are being made, the reasons behind the decisions. The data really shows us where to look and where disparities lie. And then, like I said, with the case reviews and things, we'll go in and see the why behind the data that we have.
Thank you, Angie. I heard someone once say that what we research matters, and what matters we research. And so that's why it's so important to know what's happening with our girls. Okay. So if you all are interested in joining this work group and the dynamic work that is happening in the child welfare system, you will have the opportunity to do so after this session with Angie and others. Before we transition to that point, though, I do want to bring into the discussion Amanda Cross, who leads our education work group. Amanda, fill us in on what's been going on with the work group and how folks can get involved.
Hi, thanks so much. So I am Amanda Cross. I am a research and evaluation manager at the Office of Child Development. And I have been working with the work group for several years now. And in the past, we've worked on issues that were related to safety in schools, including sexual harassment for Black girls, and working to support some initiatives that support Black girls, including the Push Out Act, which is Ayanna Pressley's sponsored legislation at the national level, trying to reduce punitive discipline in schools for all students, but particularly girls of color. And we've started new initiatives recently looking at variation in educational quality around Allegheny County by demographic groups, and particularly, of course, for Black girls. But really, we've had a major shift in our focus, and this is probably since we last met, because we haven't met since February of this year. And of course, we all know that things have changed drastically in the education landscape since then. So I think that looking forward in the next couple of months, while we'll be mindful of some of our previous initiatives, and of course, always supporting efforts to reduce law enforcement in schools and reduce punitive discipline in schools, but what we're really going to be looking to do is support remote learning and support children and schools in the pandemic conditions. And GwensGirls is running a really innovative and excellent tutoring program, and so we'll be working alongside that program to assist, to evaluate and support, advocate for that program, try to get as many, the word out to as many people that need that service as possible, and help in reaching students as much as we can during this time.
Thank you for that, Amanda. If you had to distill down kind of the biggest impediment around education concerning girls of color, Black girls, Black families in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, what would you say the most glaring issue is during COVID-19?
Wow, that's a big question. I think there
you can do it.
There really are so many, and you know, some of them are really just access to opportunities. So when you're thinking about what you know, a high-income family can access for their students, for their children, and what a low-income family may have more struggles to do, and that's just fundamentally Wi-Fi access. That's access to devices. That's interior access in the home, and that means also those opportunities to leave the home and do enrichment activities in a safe way. And I think those vary a lot by race and income levels, and that we're really trying to urgently support those students that need those enrichment activities, that need to do that fun stuff in a social way that can be as safe as possible, and try to figure that out for our communities so that we're not increasing that racial achievement gap, because we know that's a major risk right now. So we're trying to do everything we can to keep that expansion of that gap from happening.
Thank you, Amanda. That's you put the work into perfect context, so thank you for that. Okay, so now I'm going to bring to the forefront the Health and Wellness Work Group, who is Professor Brittany Brinkman and Jose Gar.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Dr. Bernie Brinkman. I'm a licensed psychologist and a professor at Flint Park University. And Jose and I have been coordinating the health and wellness group for a few years now. The group is invested in creating and supporting the conditions that will allow Black girls to thrive. And we really think about health as being much bigger than the absence of illness. And I want to actually just share a quote from Bettina Love's book. If you haven't read this, you definitely should. She talks about the need for schools to focus more on wellness and really separating out this idea that kids are going to be all right, they're going to survive, or they'll get gritty or whatever, from really thinking about what it looks like to support wellness. And she says, wellness is wisdom and being well is hard work. Being well helps you fight racism with love, grace, and compassion, and frees mental space to freedom dream and give them hell. And then retreat to your community of love for support, fulfillment, and nourishment, your home place. So that's what we're doing in the health and wellness group. Some of the things that we have, I'll just sort of name some things we've worked on, and Jose, please jump in. So we coordinated a professional learning community focused on trauma-informed care for Black girls. We put out a report that I'll put a link into the chat box on called Black Girls in Sexuality Education, Access, Equity, and Justice, where we really took a reproductive justice approach to assessing sexuality education in greater Pittsburgh area. We've worked with New Voices to support lobbying for a House bill that would mandate sexuality education in Pennsylvania. We've worked really closely with the education group on the sexual harassment work. And really, if you were in the panel this morning on gender-based violence in schools, that spoke to thinking about prevention of gender-based violence from starting with comprehensive sex education at school. And, I know Jose presented on thinking about sex education from K through 5th grade, so really thinking about this holistically. We've also worked a little bit with Liz Miller's team to start doing a needs assessment for mental health resources in the schools. Jose, do you want to jump in on anything?
Yeah, those are definitely things we've been working on, and right now, just moving forward, we're really looking forward to, and I love that kind of definition you read out from the book. We're just looking to really see how we can expand some of the work we've been doing, and really just add capacity in the city to like how we can address the health and wellness of Black girls in the city. And I'm really looking forward to the community's input on that as we move forward.
Thank you both for that. And actually, Dr. Brittany, you hit on something that I forgot to say at the beginning of our chat, which is that while we separate this work into different work groups, we understand that none of us live single issue lives. That's what Audre Lorde taught us. And so many of our young people are navigating through multiple systems, multiple public systems, multiple systems of oppression. So it's important for us to not just take this work in silos, but to understand that we have to be working across, which is what BGEA tries to do. So thank you both.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to two of my favorite people, Kim Booth, who always just has me in stitches every time I see her face on the screen. So Kim, if you're with us, and also Dr. Sarah Goodkind to give us a juvenile justice update. I know you all shared about the report, but this might be a great time to drill down into next steps.
Thank you so much, Tashara. I love to see your beautiful face. It's so smiley and happy all the time. Thank you so much, and thank you so much to Dr. Elliott. I just had to, my first opportunity to say the conference as usual was over the top, absolutely amazing. Super, I feel super energized by all the educational experience I've received, all the love and support. I really appreciate all that. But our group has been, I feel like, a long-standing group. Initially, we for years have worked on this issue of how do we decrease referrals to juvenile court. And I think that it's kind of strange that it is us, juvenile court, sort of supporting these efforts because it's how do you defer from us and you still get the help that they need. it has been longstanding that I've always struggled with, because I've had the pleasure of working. I know the system feels so negative to people, but I've had the pleasure of working with great judges, great people, my boss, the program, the SIS program. I just had such good experience with the ability to be able to talk about this particular issue of disproportionate minority contact. It's come a long way. The conversation has been, I'll tell you, 15 years ago, I had to always, if I could say, warm white people up to the topic. People would come and say, Kim, please, call it something else. You know, the police would say, could you give it a different term? Could you look at it a little bit different? Could you figure out a way to incorporate white people? Now I get to just say it. So I'm like super hopeful. I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm enthused that now we could just talk about the issue. Partners are jumping on board. People are looking for their active place and space to be able to help support us around these efforts. So the group just started out just because of that. We just wanted to decrease referrals to juvenile justice, and Sarah and I sort of worked together to sort of understand, well, why do they come and where do they come from? So over this year, and actually for the most part, actually in 2019 and 18, I think we've done most of our greatest work, which is meeting with the individual stakeholders. So when you think about the school police, the superintendent of schools, the DHS, the police themselves, the Pittsburgh Police, which is our biggest police force, which is one of the things that's different from other communities, is that in Allegheny County, we have 100 or more different municipalities. So unlike other counties that we're compared to, we have more than one police force, Pittsburgh Police being the biggest here. So we've been able to work with a lot of our stakeholders over these years individually in our meetings to say, hey, how do we help drill down with you? How do we work together to look at your data? And we've started from a point of data. I will take a minute though, just 30 seconds to say, it wasn't that hard. I mean, you look and the jail is filled with all Black people. You know what I mean? There was tons and tons of Black people. But I want you to understand that the disproportionality is what I think that people didn't really get. It's the idea that even when we come up with programs and we change things, right, it still continually affects African-American youth at the greatest disproportion, girls and boys. That's what you have to understand. So even our local detention home that might only have about 30 youth in it now. And I need to say, just because it makes me feel better, that initially when I started this work in the 90s, oh man, we had somewhere around 150 youth squoze into that detention home, okay? Today, we're at 30 or less. We could be between 30 and 20. Didn't get to look today. Been wrapped up with the conference. But I will say to you that we are constantly trying to work on that. And our judges, I think, do a great job at only detaining who we need to detain. So we have a population inside juvenile court that has failed in other systems, and they need our attention because they have failed in other systems and they come to us. And we continually take a look at that. Trust me, we get calls from police and, and different entities that say, hey, can you help us? Can you take this kid? And there is a conduct issue there. There's something that's happened. I don't want to leave out the fact that victims still remain in our community. I just don't want people to overlook that. I would feel remiss if I did not say that, but sometimes there are youth and other people have created victims in this system. And so we can't just ignore the fact that someone has gotten hurt along the way, and we need to address the conduct immediately. So I'm sorry, Sarah, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent. For a minute there, I thought we was just like in a regular meeting. And I'm looking down and realizing there's 100 people listening to me talk. Go ahead, Sarah, I'm sorry. That's the showers.
One thing before Sarah jumps in, and Sarah, you also may be able to piggyback off of this, but Kim, you said something I thought was very important. You said that there has been a change in how we have been allowed to even speak about this work since you started in the 90s. What would you say created that, if you had to drill down to maybe one or two things?
So I think it's the whole humanity piece that has occurred since we went into Corona, that has allowed people to slow down their life and actually look at, to some degree, at Black people as being human beings. not just focusing on the color of their skin just being so intimidating and so overwhelming. I think that for different reasons, things obviously in our community that are happening now has really made people and white people slow down and say, wow, was it really that bad? And I think now it has been able to, at least to be able to speak about it in a way that we can agree and have the conversation, to me is a first level piece. You can look at the data. Data sometimes makes people feel comfortable. It's sort of, there's different things that to me happen around data. But to have the conversation, the real conversation on how does it affect your work is hard. It's hard. I mean, when we talk about trying to hire good people to do this work, that's difficult. I mean, $25,000, you ain't gonna get no PhD in to sit down and talk about how you feel. The on the ground people that work directly with these youth and youth that are challenging is difficult. And it was hard to get people to the table to even address that. You want good police officers, you want good probation officers, but for $25,000, $30,000, it just doesn't happen. I know that's a different topic, but it's just one that I think that, it's just hard to find good people. And I just think in order to make these changes and to address these things, when the world sort of came to a stop like this, it really got people to look at people in a human way. And I think it gave us an opportunity to take advantage of this so that we don't have to continue to always warm people up to the topic. Can we just talk? Can we just talk about the real piece to how we help people?
Yeah, it's a really good point. Thank you for that. Sarah?
Yeah, thank you to Shira, and thank you, Kim. I think Kim really said most of it or all of it. And I'm grateful that we have this space at the Black Girls Equity Alliance to collaborate and work together. As Kim was saying, we've had people from so many different systems and agencies and organizations that work with Black girls come to the meetings. We've been listening, we've been collaborating. As Kim was talking, I was thinking about the work group meeting that we had so many years ago when each work group was talking about a name for the Black Girls Equity Alliance before there was a name. Do you remember that conversation, Kim? And we were talking about whether the name for the alliance should be Black girls or just girls. And this conversation is making me think about that, because some people felt like, well, if we say Black girls, maybe that will limit who will be involved. And then we had this collaborative conversation like, no, we need to name who we're focused on so that we can really bring this important attention. Knowing, as Kathy always says, right, that if we make the systems better for Black girls, they'll be better for everyone anyway. So that's what we've been working on. As Kim started, we've been just trying to keep Black girls and all youth out of the system so that the system can be there, when it's really needed, but so that young people are getting help and support in other places. So please join our meeting.
Thank you, Sarah. You reminded me of the Zora Neale Hurston quote where she said that Black women are the mules of the world. And so we know if Black, cis, and trans women are free, then what? Everybody will be free. And so I'm so happy that the work group decided to be explicit for your call and for your demand, which is equity across the board.